No. Because I used to be cool till I started hanging out with you, and she used to be cool till she started hanging out with me, which means that technically cool-wise, it kind of goes in a dip.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but seriously, we're recording, so... Welcome to Nerdbeards. This week we will be doing we're going to be doing them out of order, so please forgive us. We're actually going to skip 11 and 12 out of the 14 episodes of Firefly because Netflix decided to give us a weird order. Please forgive us for that. We're going to blame it all on Netflix. But we've seen, or at least our first-time viewer has finally seen the rest of those episodes. So we apologize. We will be skipping Trash, and we will be skipping The Message. So...
We have, in our previous disc, we talked about the pilot. We did another one. Oh, no, it was just the pilot we talked about.
Yeah, just the pilot. This is our second recording, by the way.
We did just the pilot. So this is everything except the pilot, Trash, and The Message.
Yeah.
So
let's talk.
All right. So I guess we're going to start off with trying Train Job for a second time.
Yes, Train Job, which was an awesome episode anyway. We should talk about that all the time now, right? You know, one of the biggest problems that I have now is that there's only 12 episodes, so you can only talk about 12 episodes.
No, there's only 14.
14.
You're missing right. 2 still.
You're right.
Well,
I only got 12 episodes.
You can continue to talk in depth.
In depth.
In depth.
Peel up the layers and layers. And
okay,
layers.
So, is it a better intro than the previous intro you saw?
Absolutely a better intro. I enjoyed it a lot more. They made sure that they did ribs where it was more of an intro rather than beating yourself over the head with it like they did in that in the pilot.
No, space western.
I know.
Yeah, the exposition sledgehammer.
The exposition sledgehammer was absolutely
so it felt more like a plot of the week.
Yeah, and they got rid of, and I noticed they got rid of the exposition music as it was going from one scene to another. Because if you look at the pilot, when it was transferring from one scene to another, it always ended with the space western music. Space western, yes, exactly. And then when they finally started doing the real episodes, they got rid of that, which is a good thing because it was annoying.
Okay, so do you feel we've covered the Train Job? Since we've got 12 episodes we've got to get through to cover?
No, we have to talk about the kick.
You want to talk about the kick? The kick is great. All right, let's talk about the kick. So, you saw the kick. What'd you think?
Anti-hero.
Okay.
It was, I'm a hero, but I will do whatever I need to do, and I want to make sure that you're aware that that line that I have doesn't mean that I won't kill anybody. Because a lot of times when they talk about heroes, you know that line is,
Batman
I'll do everything, even of things like Batman is a good example, Superman, a lot of these things they'll go, I will do everything but kill people, right? And Captain Reynolds, you know, right from the very beginning, yes,
well, he's killed
not
during
a problem.
the war.
Yeah, exactly. He is a war hero. He has
He's
no qualms about killing you if it serves the specific purpose. He's not going out there and, slaughtering them by the millions, but if it serves a specific purpose,
at the right time and the right
things, he has absolutely no problem killing you.
Okay.
And I think that kind of sets up a precedent for that character, which you kind of go, he's going to kill again?
So the next guy who
thing.
shows up, who has heard the same briefing and is put right in the same position as Crow, I think it's really the best thing for all of us. Yeah, I heard it the first time. We're good. Let's just do that.
Let's just do that.
Yeah, because if I kill you, it's going to be to your face.
Yeah, and what's funny is it would have been great exposition in the pilot if they went through a safety briefing. Don't you stand over there, okay? And make sure that you keep the guns away from pointing at people, and make sure that you eat regularly, and don't stand over there because you're gonna get sucked up by the
Like in
intake
that scene in the pilot when he's telling the guests where they can go on the ship.
Exactly.
You bring an interesting point up. When I kill you, you'll be awake, you'll be armed, and you'll be facing me.
Yes.
He does not do that with Lawrence when he shoots the lawman.
You're absolutely
in the intro.
right.
Because Lawrence is facing the other direction. He shoots him in the head, in the back, or technically in the back.
But he was armed and he was awake.
He was armed, he was awake. So, 2 out of 3?
2 out of 3 back.
And he knew it was coming because he was on the person's ship being bad.
Bad.
Well, was he really
Bad.
being bad? I mean, really, wasn't he on a ship full of bad people? Like Mal?
I mean, his name means
Mal means bad.
bad.
Oh yes, but if you're a lawman for a corrupt government, are you good or are you evil?
Well, then that's going to get into some other issues that makes the Alliance kind of weird. Also, are we covered at least on Train Job itself?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, because the next one we've got to cover after that is Bushwhacked, where they come across the derelict ship and the single survivor.
Oh, such a sad episode.
It's a really good explanation, I think, of what the Reavers are, even though we don't really see them too much again in the TV series.
Did you get the feeling that Captain Reynolds has seen them before? They give lots of little hints that I've seen this before. I know what's going on. I know what to expect. We don't want to be anywhere around here.
Well, even Zoe has. You get the concept. She's been there because she says, if we're very lucky, they'll do 3 things to us, and they'll do them specifically in that order.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think of the reveal as they're being interrogated? Everybody's different opinions as to their interrogation. With Jane, who's not saying anything, Wash, who's saying way too much.
Well, it just lends to a non-violent way to expand their stories in an individualized basis. It only lend to help with the story as it progresses. You learn a little bit more about the characters. So
Okay.
Get a lot of insight into, well, not to the brother and sister because they're not being interrogated. They're hanging out outside the ship in the spacesuits, but you've got a really good... I'm not convinced I was on the wrong side of the war. None of your business about my marriage. Oh yeah, let me tell you about my awesome wife. With
I
Wash,
love my wife. I lust after my wife. You know, that kind of
with Wash, you get the idea that he's... Not only is he happy he's got a girl, but he's happy he's got... Yeah, I've got a girl.
I got a
Yeah.
girl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've got Gina Torres.
She's a very beautiful woman.
Mrs. Morpheus.
One thing that I thought was it was so necessary for the story, but logically didn't make any sense. Is I really don't think that Alliance guy who was in charge,
The
commander, needed Captain Reynolds back on the ship.
Okay.
Because he's like, hey, you should let me go because I know the ship better than anybody else. Well, this is like way far in the future. I'm sure the commander has the map. He knows where everything is. I'm just going to pull up my good old map. We're going to go look and search the ship and it'll be all fine. But no.
Well, Reynolds is claiming that this is the boogeyman. This guy, whatever has happened to him, has turned him into the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm. If
If you think this is such a death sentence, yeah, you go ahead. You be the first person in there. You don't have a gun. You're completely overarmed. So if there is any boogeyman in there, you're first to go. And since you've got the knowledge, basically being the person who understands if it's the mysticism of the monster, you have a better shot of surviving than we do because you know what kinds of places the monster would hide.
Gotcha.
Well, and you also know where the different places on the ship, because there's a lot of jury rigging being done.
Smugglers' holes and such. He even
That's
says there's a lot of smugglers' holes.
One thing, though, that I thought when I was watching the episode, especially toward the end, when the quote-unquote monster guy jumps at him, I go, so what is it? Chicken wire disease? Because if you really look at his face and you pause it, it looks like he has open holes in his face and chicken wire kind of stuck to the points of his face to hold those holes open. And it was very weird. It was a very weird...
Over-puncturization.
Yeah, but it was just a very weird design choice as far as the makeup is concerned.
Okay. So, ready to move on to Shindig yet?
Yes.
Okay. Shindig.
It's a fun name.
It is a fun name.
Fun episode.
It's a fun episode.
The whole episode was kind of a fun episode. It delved a little bit. Yeah, it delved a little bit more into this kind of love-hate relationship between Captain Reynolds and the companion. And Ara, yes. Because they keep hinting, as we'll see, obviously, throughout the season, that they're having some kind of relationship that there's like this line they don't want to cross. And this kind of helps to emphasize that relationship that they have, because he's defending her honor that she may or may not want to be defended, but she doesn't put up a fight. She's like, ooh, defending my honor. Ooh,
he doesn't respect her job. He calls her a whore all the time.
I know.
But
she hates that word.
And she hates the word, because there's a difference between a companion and a whore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you find out later what that difference is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also, and it's because she gets paid for it and it's her profession, because he doesn't think or say anything about Kaylee, who in several episodes shows that she is quite open with her affections.
Yes, she does.
I have a question, though.
All
in
right.
the ending sword fight, do you feel that, Captain Reynolds cheated?
I do.
A little bit.
I can honestly say that, yes,
And
I
Nara's like, wait, stop, I'll go with you, just don't. And he's like,
Woohoo!
do. Stabby, stabby.
Stabby, I win. Yay.
Well, it's also, if you know for a fact that the person that you're challenging to a duel does not know how to use the weapon, like, it's like, hey, I'm a swords master. You barely know what end is pointy. It's like, let's have a duel.
Yeah.
But did Mel actually dig himself that own? I mean, didn't he dig himself that situation?
Maybe.
You entered this society, you need to understand these rules, and when you act that way, these are those consequences. So I can't really fault Atherton for following the societal rules.
And it's also the hypocrisy of he won't let Atherton call her a whore, but he'll call her a whore up and down all the time.
I know,
Well,
right?
Anara says that.
Yeah.
Atherton isn't just calling her a whore, he's calling her his object. I've bought you, I've paid for you, you're mine for a while.
Yeah. The whole
It's kind
object
of
thing.
tacky to point out that I paid money for this.
Yeah.
Money has changed hands. I will keep her as long as I can.
Well, on the other hand, he does expect her to live up to her obligations as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's looking at the legalities and looking at the fact that companions are a status symbol in this culture, that Inara has the power, but because Atherton's in a very almost like not quite Victorian, but very I'm a man, I'm gonna fight, and the girls have to be pretty in pretty dresses. He's not used to the woman having the power in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who has had employees, when my employees walk off and just leave, that bothers me when I'm paying for them to work or do whatever they're supposed to be doing. So that I kind of can. I know I'm going to sound like a butthead. I've never used a prostitute, but
to our knowledge,
but I kind of have to find for Atherton in that sense, because a lot of money exchanged hands for a very short period of time, just so that I can have a girl on my arm. Because at least in the case of Atherton Wing, I think everybody was pretty much aware of it. Atherton is going to have to rely on his social graces to get a girl.
I think that a lot of his frustration came because Arya, Anara, pushed him back. Because he was like, he's just like, and this is the first time it's happened to her, where he's like, you need to stay with me forever and ever and ever. And she's like, no, this is a job, I'm leaving. And he's like,
this
no.
is a rental thing.
Yeah, exactly.
She was considering the proposal to stay and be his personal companion for the rest of her life. Mm-hmm. However long or short that may be. But she would have been treated like an object the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Yes. And in that sense, I agree.
That kind of, I think, crosses the line from companionship to slavery.
Well, what do you think that they're hinting a little bit that Clara is jealous of Inara for being a companion?
Sorry, that Kaylee is jealous
Kaylee,
of Inara.
thank you. I apologize.
Clara is the wrong show.
You're right. Kaylee, I will get these words right.
There's a difference between
Eventually.
Firefly and Doctor Who. Just for those of you that don't know that.
Kaylee is jealous of her a little bit.
A little bit.
She wants to be part of this.
Well, I think it's not the.
I think it's the Flash that intrigues her.
Mm-hmm.
It's that Inara has seen the core world. She's seen the Rim. She's been all over. And Kaylee, as much as she's on that ship, she's kind of confined to that ship, making sure that ship works.
And even before she was on the ship, she had never left her home planet, which we learn in a later episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when she does get off, it's on small worlds in bizarre types, like not bizarre like strange, but bizarre like flea market.
Yeah.
And it's just like us as lay people looking at the
Jet
Kardashians or jet setters and going, "Whoa, that's so awesome!" But it's the
You don't know the problems $3 million comes with, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
what I'd like to know.
What I found interesting, especially in that party scene, was how they portrayed what I like to call the plastics.
Yes, the plastics.
the mean
You should
girl.
see
The
your
Mean
girl.
Girls, yes. I was watching the episode going, that's the plastics.
There's the
That's
plastics.
absolutely their things. You got the hierarchy of the plastics. You got the girls behind them encouraging her to be mean.
But even the society is aware of those plastics, because there's the old man who says, I don't remember the line, it's something like, takes a dozen slaves.
A dozen days to put you in that dress and a wink of a schoolboy's smile to get you out of it.
At least so much your daddy
Makes
says.
sense.
And I'm thinking, your father should never know that.
Yeah, you know it's bad when your daddy knows your sexual history. Because it's not like you're sitting around really proud at the golf club going, "Do you know that Mimsy's a whore?"
Or he could be making... I always thought it was him making a jab at the daddy being kind of a perv.
Mm-hmm.
But that was me.
Interesting. Maybe we'll cover that in a later episode.
Yeah, maybe.
But we do need to move on to safe, in which Mal has to choose which crew members to save. One is gravely wounded.
Okay.
Simon and River are taken
Kidnapped.
away.
And there's some hint at the shepherd's mysterious past because he has an ident card that gets him.
Yes.
Cut the line at the hospital.
Yeah, it's just like, here you go, and oh crap, let's go.
Free
And
pass. Yeah, he has 100% VA privileges, like a senator.
Yep.
Yeah, they make it mysterious. They do explain it a little later,
Okay.
but a little bit more.
But keep going.
But the whole episode just seemed to be centered around that. What was the other part of that episode?
There was the witch hunt and the shepherd being shot.
Okay.
Big damn heroes.
Big damn heroes. The witch hunt. That was the best part of the whole episode.
It really was. The witch hunt
Yeah,
really was.
the witch hunt of the episode. Because
And what's funny is River couldn't shut up long enough to... Yeah.
This whole Salem trial thing going on. You must be a witch. Because they're like, oh, she's never been able to talk. She's like, yeah, she didn't talk to me. She's like, you just see the inner workings
Tick, tick,
into
tick,
like,
tick, tick, tick. Yeah.
Oh, witch!
oh my god, she's a witch. Let's go burn her now. And I'm like, wait, you just sang her praises. Okay, she's a witch.
And then there's the leader who goes, I'm the leader. Do you understand what that means? Yes, it means you're the new leader since you killed the last one. Wait, what?
What?
She's a witch! She's
definitely
a witch!
She,
Yeah.
I think
She reads minds, and I'm thinking, wait, so she read your mind, she was right?
what?
You know?
I think with Safe, we really get the first really good look at Mal being protective of the Tam siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Because he comes back for them. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah, he left them though, and you weren't actually sure in the episode for a minute that she was going to go back, but he did, obviously.
Yeah.
And he went back, saved them, and everything. But that whole town dynamic, the kidnapped, the town where they kidnapped him, brought him in, and said, "We need a doctor. You're going to help these people." And he's like, well, I guess they're sick and I'm here. I guess I'll be a kidnapped doctor and go help them.
He was okay with it because
He was taking care of his
was
sister.
pretty under the radar, and he was still able to take care of his sister. And until they started accusing the sister of witchcraft, it could have been a much safer life than living on aboard a ship with
In which they were going to keep crossing alliance problems.
Yeah. Because it's like Dr. Tam medicine. Whoa, man.
Medicine, whoa, man, because he's always so gothy, isn't he?
And that also, at the beginning of that episode, it kind of highlights the snobbishness at the beginning, where Kaylee's like, "Oh,
They're through
look
the general
at
store."
this," and he's like, "Yeah, it's just crap that for people to buy," and it's just like, "Oh, I thought it was cute." So he really
It's a
doesn't.
pretty duck. Yeah, it's the same duck you see in every tourist agent. Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and of course, the most quotable line is, we come in right at the last minute and save the day. What does that make us?
Big damn heroes, sir. Don't
Ain't
it
we
just?
Ain't we just?
Right.
Do we have anything else to say about Safe? I mean, I really liked the dance sequence. I thought it was very beautifully...
It's filmed at the Country Bears in Disney World. They did not have permission. It's awesome. That's guerrilla filming right there.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So we're ready to move on to Armis Reynolds.
Yes.
Mel gets a wife. All I got was some dumb old stick sounds like rain. You got a wife?
I mean, they did a good job in the beginning to make you feel like that she was really this... country bumpkin, I'm now your wife. Oh, it's so sad and everything. They did a good job in making you feel like that was her character, and then slowly you went, oh.
Yeah.
But what I don't get is...
They showed the marriage ceremony, too.
They
Very
showed the
specific to
marriage
show the
ceremony.
hat, very specific to show her giving the wine and the dance. And like, you, sir, are a married man.
Well, let me look up divorce. Well, you see, divorce is,
Unless I remember the episode incorrectly, they never actually contacted the planet back to make sure that was actually the
Yes,
arrangement.
and...
So she could have snuck in ninja style. Gorilla married him under that lane. Under that...
Yeah, she says, well, you were bequeathed to me last night. Well, he never mentioned it. And I didn't put two and two together, because if you put two and two together later, you go, oh,
wait a minute. Back
he
that
never
up.
mentioned it because it didn't happen.
Right.
Although we get the pretty floral bonnet bit in this episode,
Yes.
if I remember right.
I swear by my pretty floral bonnet, if your hand touches iron, I will end you.
I still think we need to
That's
sew a bunch of pretty floral bonnets and send them to the Houston Browncoats for their continual trashing of their enemies and mech warriors.
What do you think in the episode where she's kind of, okay, I've now kissed the captain, He's falls down, she goes in, and then she tries to seduce Nora.
Well,
that was very interesting. You're like, is she really seducing her? And you're like, oh, no, she's just playing her. Okay.
well, she says later, she's had training. She's
Yeah.
had good training. I think we were supposed to learn more about her as the seasons went by, and we just never got to.
Yep. And they let her go.
That is an episode that is a favorite of many fans.
And it's full of biblical references, or at least new Earth biblical references.
Vera.
And Vera, my very favorite gun.
If you notice, he's got Vera throughout the series, but he only really calls her by name in that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he wants to trade his woman for a woman.
It's all I got. But you can have it.
It's the very best thing I have for the very best. In a barter society, I could believe that I would give the very best of what I have for the very best of what you have. That would be a fair trade.
And, of course...
But that's treating women like objects. Which
It is.
Which
is
is one of those things. One thing that I noticed about this, and I did want to mention this as we talk today, is that this is a very dark look into the future. This is not a Gene Roddenberry
dystopian.
Star Trek
It's dystopian.
vision of it, because it's kind of like taking the 1800s and how men and women and everything's been treated, and putting it in the 23rd, 24th century, where whatever time period this happens to be, is future that it is. You don't get that in this kind of setting, that they really have any hope that we're going to get any better as a society.
Yeah. Whereas in Star Trek, you're like, oh, we have overcome all of our...
Well, catastrophes
Prejudices
always
and
will
stuff.
backset us.
Well, except
Yeah.
for the Maquis.
Okay, but
They would
for
disagree.
Firefly purposes, but
Yes.
catastrophe, whatever the word is, disasters backset us up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, this gives you another view on the Shepherd, where one of his most quoted lines is "special hell."
If you corrupt this woman, you will go to the special hell. The one for, what is it? Child molesters and people who talk in the
movie
theaters. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm going,
People
where
who
is
talk
this
in
special
theaters.
hell that you're talking about? Is it over here in between? So is it lukewarm hell? Is that where
I think he's trying to say that these are the things I consider to be the worst things possible. When I
Yes.
want to watch a good film, people who talk in the theater annoy the crap out of me. As
I
think
will
he's-
kill them, and I have no qualms with that.
We'll discuss that in a later episode.
Absolutely.
So, are we done with Mrs. Reynolds?
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
so.
Then we're going to move on to Jamestown, where it has a song and
The
going back.
hero of Canton, la 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 la,
Uh-huh.
and they're dancing, and it's the most funniest, awkwardest episode because of that whole awkward of like, but I didn't really give to the rich and whatever.
Actually,
but it's
I think
all
it's a
about
really-
perspective.
Right.
And this
Yeah.
episode is all about perspective.
Right.
This must be what going mad feels like.
You guys rioted because of me?
You guys love me.
Yay!
You're not drinking whiskey. You're not drinking that crap. You're drinking the best we're in the house.
I don't. I think they remember you.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite is Wash's line. We need to go to the crappy town where I'm a hero.
So this episode is full of perspective.
It is full of perspective.
Full of perspective. It's what's the perspective of the crew as they're seeing this?
Right.
What's perspective from James? What's the
Jane. Cobb.
What's the perspective from Jane's partner?
Yes.
What's the
Who
perspective
spent 5
from
years in a hothouse?
Exactly. What about the perspective of the guy who owns the place? What about, and what about the perspective for the guy who gives his life for Jane?
And the son of
He
the guy
has-
who owns the place.
Exactly. The son, he has his own perspective on the entire situation by letting them go. You remember?
And Nara's perspective, even. When
Yeah.
the son is describing, there's this man he landed on a ship recently, and she thinks that...
Oh, he's
The
Mal.
description-
He does crazy things. He's an idiot. He doesn't know anything. No, I'm talking about Jane. Jane
Yeah.
Cobb.
Wait a minute.
Jane Cobb, hero.
And it's the definition of manhood because the father's like, "You're gonna make my son a man," and then he's like, "Oh crap, you made him a man."
He's like, you asked her to make a man, father, so I made a decision. I let him
As
go.
a man, I made a decision.
You. We're here to buy mud. What? And please stop describing me.
I know. He seemed so. Jane felt so sad he was leaving. He toppled his statue and told everybody, "Don't worship me. I'm not worthy of your worship." And
That makes them want to worship him even more because they see their hero being humble.
Now it's
humble.
humility.
Yeah, darn it.
But yes, that's how legends are born. It's always, you did what?
Yeah.
I did what? No, it was too heavy, and I pushed him out, and I pushed out my partner.
Well, he was a bad guy, so
Yeah,
that's why
yeah,
he ended up in the
fine,
hothouse.
yeah.
Okay. Ready to move on to Out of Gas?
Out of gas.
My
The
personal
flashback
favorite.
episode.
One of my favorites.
God, the flashback episode. That could have been 2 separate episodes, and it would have been fine.
Really?
Yeah, I think that they pieced them together to fit the whole hour, but if you would have put it separate and had one as a flashback episode of one, I don't think the flashback helped the out of gas part.
Well, it's
Move.
him facing his possible death, and because he's been shot, he's possibly going to die of exposure and lack of oxygen.
His life is
And-
flashing before his
Yeah.
eyes.
And that's what it is as he's going through the steps, he's remembering all
What
of
got
the
me here.
how I met each member of my family and how they became my family.
I didn't get that.
But it's actually
That
all
makes
about
sense.
Serenity, the ship, because you even hear the car dealer, not car dealer, the ship dealer say, a ship like this will be with you until you die if you treat her right.
Of course, he wasn't talking about the Firefly.
Well,
Yeah.
but
Whatever that ship was.
But you take care of a ship like this, and she'll be with you until the day you die. And it almost was.
If I remember right, the part that failed in this episode is the part that in the very first episode, Kaylee goes to the captain, we need a new blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh, it'll hold out.
Yeah.
No.
You said that 2 weeks ago. Well, you better hope it doesn't break. It breaks. You broke her.
Yep, the explosion. And, this is, yet another episode where somehow River Tam goes, there's a fire. And everybody goes, what? And
She can probably hear it. It's probably she's much more sensitive to the
hearing,
vibration.
you think, is a vibration thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because I know people that have owned boats and cars and can tell you something's wrong just by the hum of the motor.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about my car. So.
My dad used to be able to do it with his plane.
But yeah, and it's things like you finding out where each character came from.
The ones
Right.
that
Like-
we didn't meet in the Serenity pilot.
Right. Like Bester. Wow, I've got 2 genius mechanics. Nobody's ever called me a genius before.
Yeah.
What did you think about Wash's porn stash?
No.
Yes, Wash and his porn and I don't trust him. I don't trust him. He just gives me the willies, Captain. I cannot
I
trust
was
this
watching
guy.
that episode going, you know what? I think I suddenly realized every time I saw Morgan in his costume that he would wear to these conventions, he's missing that porn stash. That's what it is. Man, I knew he was missing something. It didn't feel quite right. Like he was missing
On the next
something.
convention, porn stash. The Wash stash.
Because,
I'll do it for you, baby.
See, now I have a scary combination of porn stash
From
Orange
Orange
is
is
the
the
New
New
Black. And no.
Just might work, Captain. Just might do.
It's very interesting also to the way that they recruited Jane.
Mm-hmm. They recruited Jane just as Jane. They knew what Jane was from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The captain has
He's a
no
merc.
excuse. He knows what kind of character Jane was the
You make
moment he met him.
You make 7%. That's it. At least you'd have your own bunk. Wait, you don't have your own bunk?
Oh,
No, I gotta share it with that fella
that
over
guy
there.
I could have you have your own bunk. Oh,
Jane
okay.
really has it good on Serenity.
Yeah, it really does.
Oh, yeah. And
Jen, you're not falling for this, are you? Keep talking. Go ahead.
This episode is you get little hints that Jane actually does have something going on upstairs every few episodes or so. Like in Shindig when he's like, that with River talking to Badger, that would have been a great distraction. Or in this episode when he's like, hey, quit your arguing. You're using up all the air.
You're using up all the air.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you can see that immediately the captain begins evaluating Jane because he says, Jane says, I found you, didn't I? He goes, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. So, what do you make here? He immediately realizes that you've got a valuable talent of finding me that I don't have. You have a skill I could probably really use.
well, and it's also the almost telepathic connection that Zoe and Mal have, where she knows exactly
Where he's going with
yeah,
that.
and she just is like, sure thing, let's get this did.
You've been friends with somebody
Get
long
this
enough.
did. Nice. Very nice.
Or you've been friends with somebody long enough, or you know somebody long enough. There is a connection like that builds up.
Fun.
I could see the wheels turning in either one of these guys' eyes at some point or other.
I don't know if that's a good
Scary.
thing. Sometimes I'm skipping a couple kegs. Kegs, cogs, whatever the word is. All right, the next one
Gears.
after that is Ariel.
Ariel, remind
All
me.
we got to do is land on the planet. Inara's going to go get her gynecologist appointment.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the hospital to steal medical drugs, and everything goes bad.
Everything goes back. There's 2 things I want to focus on and talk to you guys about.
All right,
Because
as the new
they're
viewer,
absolutely confusing.
Number 1.
All right, well, 1 is confusing. Okay, so they get caught.
They
Jane
get caught.
obviously, goes, hey, I'm going to go get a big reward, and
That's what
whatever.
it's
They get caught. The bad guys are trying to get her.
Yes.
Go. they kill everybody
Yes.
who comes in contact with her.
That's correct.
With weird, hi, this...
Correct,
and I'm thinking it's with sound that they kill them. Because that's a way you can kill people if you have a high enough frequency.
I will answer that with one short answer.
Yes.
The beginning of the movie explains why they have to kill everybody.
Oh.
You're not there yet.
Yeah.
They also show up at the end of Bushwhacked, if I remember right.
No, it's Train Job. We didn't come here to pick up a box of Band-Aids.
Yeah.
And they slide the picture of River on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
But-
you know that she's at least aware of them, because in a previous episode she's like 2x2 hands of blue, 2x2 hands of blue. She's freaking out in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning of this episode, she slashes Jane's blue sun shirt. You look better in red. There's something very creepy about the color blue in this show.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you've picked that up.
No, I've not picked that up.
Okay.
That's okay. I'll look for that now.
It's a little more obvious when we get actually to Serenity.
It is more obvious in film a little bit.
In the film, okay.
Blue Sun is the Walmart large corporation of Serenity. So the reason she slashes his shirt is because it's Blue Sun, I think it's like fries or Blue Sun food, and she hates Blue Sun in the back of her brain, and she slashes his shirt.
Okay.
Which is why you look better in red than you do in blue.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I think I just blew a major plot point, but it'll make
You know,
sense.
they also state in it that
What was number two
in
you
that
had
in that
confusion
episode. Well, let me get this one point. The other thing that they were saying about River Tam is they kept opening her brain
Yes.
and sewing it back and opening her brain again, putting it back and stuff. It's been done multiple times.
Yes.
Why would you do that?
Get on your nerves.
They were
kind of
making
thing.
sure her amygdala didn't grow back.
Interesting.
They had to put enough scar tissue that her amygdala didn't grow
They
back.
got into her lizard brain and messed her up.
Fun.
They pulled her fear flight response, I think is what they pulled.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I was a little confused about
All right.
was you realized at the end of the episode that the captain wasn't fooled about Jane.
Right.
You rat us out. You turned us in for money. You suck. You need to go. So they fly off, and he opens up the thing.
Puts him in the airlock.
Puts him in the airlock so he can get sucked out into oblivion. And of course, Jane doesn't like this. Now, two things that happen in this. Obviously, Jane confesses.
The money got too good.
The money got too good.
I got
so he was going to
stupid.
go, and I got stupid. So he did make him confess, but then he's like, okay, Captain looks like he's going to go ahead and walk off. And then,
Please don't
yeah,
tell them.
please don't tell them. And then that is, suddenly the captain goes, like, that's what I wanted to hear, and shuts it off.
Jane has just been hero worshipped in front of the entire crew of Serenity by Simon Tam, who we know he hates. We know he doesn't like Simon.
Well, and Jane does have moments where you realize that he's not just all like money, 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 money. That he does have moments of
Genuine care.
Yeah, genuine care. I mean, that's why he decided at the last minute to go. Okay, let's go this way, because he did
Well, he also
not
saves the guy
realize.
in the middle of trying to sneak through the hospital. That guy's going to die. Fine, I will save you. You know, you're an idiot. Your standard antiseptic.
Simon's a good guy.
Yeah.
And he
Simon's a
knows
good
what
character.
he's doing.
I really like his character.
Yeah.
The doctor character.
Ariel's got a lot of really good bits to it. The hero worship from Simon to Jane. You've got, well, the carrying out of that heist is just amazing. How well they were able to put it all together.
It was a little bit, you know, they broke the wall of believability for just a second when they go, look, we instantly made an ambulance. Look how authentic and pretty it is, and how we painted it, and it's perfect. It was.
It's a training
There's probably
montage.
it was also a montage, dude.
Montage Man. Boop, boop, Montage Man.
I know that you who love montages. I just saw a video earlier. I know you're not going to give guff over a montage.
Oh yeah, and
Montage Man.
How long do you think it took Jane to memorize all that?
Oh, and he's using
Damn
it.
I learned that line. I'm gonna use it.
Yeah.
We attempted to use the cortical steroids, but it was ineffective, so we used Shit, what's that line again?
Yeah.
Well, if they would have...
If I'd wanted to go to school, I'd have done it.
The ship just looked, when they were flying around in it, and I know this is a decision that the people made while they were trying to make the episode, but when they started flying it over, I was all sold that they were able to do it, but when they flew over and landed at the hospital, it was too perfect. It was like it was from the factory, beautiful, shiny as possibly you could get it.
Well, it's an Alliance Central world.
There's this idea that
Yeah.
everything in the Alliance is stone perfect. Like, they always smile. We're in a hospital. This is the Alliance. Everybody smiles here.
Yeah.
And he gets in trouble because he smiled.
Well, yeah, and it's just like if you are in a $1 million hospital, your medical transport van isn't going to have scuffs and dings. It's going to be pretty imperfect and shiny because they're going to make sure they buff that puppy out.
There's a maintenance crew waiting to fix it if it breaks. You know.
Yeah, because if it looks.
My Humvee got broken. Gee, whatever will I do? Hey, there's a motor pool of 16 people willing to replace the tires, and all I got to do is write on the form, low on oil. You know. You've worked in the motor pool. I know how easy it is to get shit fixed.
Yeah, you spit shine that
Almost
puppy.
a broken.
One thing about that episode, especially as they were going out, Jane is beating the door handle.
Okay.
With this weapon. I think he was trying to do it with that. Yeah, with that weapon, because he tried to open it with the weapon. It wouldn't work, so he pulled it up and he started slamming. You could. I really liked that part actually because you could really see the frustration of he knows in his head that he put himself in the situation, and it is not getting any better because he cannot open this door. This door won't open. And it screwed this up. This is really stupid. I can't believe.
Well, and you could also see it as he's a little bit naive that he's actually ever going to get a bounty, because anybody that he goes to turn the bounty in, they'd be like, Jane with a Y. Two
Oh,
B's?
2 B's?
Oh, look!
Mud Planet!
Surely he's got something on his record.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Because you kind of get the feeling that the Mud Planet was not the only thing on Jane's record, you know.
The captain knew it.
Yeah.
Captain Reynolds absolutely knew it, and he thinks he's an absolute idiot that Jane doesn't realize this.
Oh, Blue Sun, while I'm thinking of it, the surgery scanner also comes up with the word Blue Sun in its diagnostic screen before it pulls up the person.
I get the feeling, though, had River not stabbed him earlier in the episode, he would have been less likely to grab him.
betrayed her,
At least
yeah.
slightly less likely. Yes, he's all about the money, but crazy woman stabbed me.
All right, so have we covered it? Ready to move on?
One more question. Inside the scene where he was doing the brain scan.
Brain scan.
The end of that part, okay, right before they're about to shut it off and leave, because Jane's like, "Oh, we're gonna leave
gotta go,
a little
gotta
early,"
go.
right? You see the scan turn a little bit red.
Her brain.
Red letters come up on the screen, and she screams.
Okay.
Okay, is it
I don't know how
the
to
bad guys who put up those reds, the red things and made her scream, or was it?
Her sensing Jane's betrayal.
Yeah, not even the sensing range of betrayal. Is it her who basically infiltrates that technology and turns it red and makes her scream and puts her
Well,
head?
I know that when she wakes up, when Jane shows up, she has already figured out that he's going to betray her.
Mm-hmm.
Because she says something to the effect that I can't remember off the top of my
I
head.
can kill you with my brain.
Is that actually what she says at that point?
I don't know.
That's what she's thinking.
If that was in that episode or not, but I know
No.
she tells him that at some point, and I think it is that episode.
I know she says it, but I don't think it's... But she says something to the effect of, "How's the money?" or something, right as she sits up, right as he walks in. And he's like, "Nothing. What's she talking about? Nothing. She's weird in the brain pan or whatever."
All right.
All right, so next one is War Stories.
Another favorite episode of mine.
That is an awesome
Niska
episode.
Part 2.
Niska Part 2.
There's
He
really
comes back.
two parts to this episode. There's that whole Wash Captain Zoe dynamic, and then there's this Niska thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is where you really get that Wash is really jealous of the relationship between Zoe and the captain.
Uh-huh. Yes, that's true.
And he's like, I want to have war stories too. Can I have war stories?
I want to have war stories too.
I want war stories. You have war stories. I want war stories too. We're going to have war stories.
Well,
so I'm going to rig the ship because we're going to have war stories. Damn it.
We're going to have stories too. Right.
Yeah, I want to have an inside joke too.
I spend a lot of time with Lyle because we work together, and we've worked together a lot over the last year.
Don't touch me. It's hot in here, and I'm sweating my butt off.
Oh, no,
So
right?
Morgan will be like, I want war stories too.
I don't say war stories, but yeah.
You guys talk over stuff when I'm not around.
You do.
We do. It happens.
Yep.
And all three of us go back as far as a long time ago.
Okay, can we talk about Firefly? Because if you guys want to reminisce, we can do that. And we'll talk about how Lyle was my first wife. And how the first thing that I ever heard him say is, I waited up for you. See, I have stories too. Can we do
Anyways.
this?
All right, Nerdbeards.
All right.
All right,
That's funny.
so war stories.
All right.
The captain needs to solve this on his own. No, he doesn't. Oh!
Well, you and Zoe can say, well, if you were Zoe, what would Zoe do? I want to do what Zoe does.
Right.
What would you do? Well, Zoe would shut up. Okay, I need
can
to
shut
shut
up.
up. I can shut up now. Yeah.
Okay.
You need to talk because
This is the episode where Kaylee truly becomes afraid of River.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Which I love that.
See how gun-shy Kaylee really is.
Right.
We see
how gun-shy the preacher is not.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, he is a little wishy-washy on kneecaps.
Aren't you gonna have a problem with killing people? The Bible's a little fuzzy on the subject of kneecaps. You're just going,
Even Simon,
that's a little dirty, preacher, you know?
even Simon is okay shooting a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't think the man has ever held a gun before. And he probably hasn't. He still has not killed anybody.
But in the episode, he's like,
But you don't
did
know
I
what
kill
he's already
somebody? No, maybe I didn't. You know, he wasn't even sure because it
Yeah.
was such a crazy
Well, and the
firefight.
preacher goes, I still don't think you've killed anyone.
I think you fired the weapon in their general direction. It'll be fine.
I think the reason why Zac Efron, what's his name?
Simon Tam?
Simon Tam. I think the reason... What is so funny? I think the reason why Simon Tam is not afraid of shooting a gun is because there is that point in his life where he probably had to go get his sister, and I suspect at least holding a gun, or the very serious risk of having to use it, possibly came up during that past.
Makes
Kaylee's
sense.
never been around a gun.
Right.
The war was a few years before the show. She was just too young to get involved.
Yeah.
And it probably wasn't near her.
Right.
But yeah,
Or at
and
least the
it's-
important parts were.
Nice.
Thing with war stories, this is Niska coming back to kick them in the butt for
The train job.
the train job.
And
they-
Crow.
They lose all that money that they worked so hard stealing medicine for.
Is it wrong that I was kind of thought it was hilarious of how messed up in the head Niska was when it came to the whole situation? Because Zoe
What?
came in and like, I have money. And he's like, you know what? This is worth half. Why don't you choose? And Zoe's like, oh, I choose him.
I choose
And I
no
thought that
problem.
was funny. And he's like,
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you expecting me to have some moral dilemma? And you just see Niska going, "You're a son of a." You know?
She
Right.
ruined Niska's
Yeah.
demon cricket plan.
but
You know
this
what?
was like,
This
oh,
is
wait.
And then he goes, "Wait,
more.
you deserve change."
Oh, yes.
Aggravated.
Here you go. We're even now.
It's like, I
See you
hope
later.
this goes back
It
on.
was a non-option. It really wasn't.
And then of course, Wash decides to go all Rambo when he gets back on the ship.
Yeah.
I'm going full Rambo. What do we need to do? Here's my guns. Here we go. We're going to go back after the captain because suddenly we've bonded and he saved my life. And I know that he saved my life by doing it. Which I thought was actually interesting is they made sure it was really clear that we know that Wash knew that he had said all that stuff to save his life. We know even watching that part, I knew watching that part, he was just saving that to keep him conscious.
Yes.
And he knew that he couldn't stay conscious unless he said that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
He
I
gave
have to
Wash
keep
a
him
reason
angry
to
enough to
fight.
have adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, of course, the final scene.
The
I
sexual
don't like the final
tension.
scene. I think the final scene's a terrible scene.
Is it
I'm
terrible?
Not, I'm not happy with the final scene.
And it's the couple going to their bunk. We'll be in our bunk, which is also the same episode which you hear Jane say the phrase, I'll be in my bunk watching, and That being in the bunk thing is mentioned twice in this episode.
It is, isn't it? All right. Speaking of bunks, we're ready to move on to the next one with the whorehouse.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Heart of Gold.
All right. Heart of Gold.
With Mistress Heather.
Mistress Heather. This is the episode where the line
You're a dirty
between...
girl. You're a dirty... Wash, I am neither dirty nor a girl. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong channel.
Jane.
This is the episode where there's a little bit blurred line now between them being a heroic group of people
Okay. And
being just people who are just going to town, picking up stuff, going to town, making money. You know, doing those odd kind of
well, they're doing a favor.
jobs and stuff. So now they decide that they're just going to do a favor, which they may or may not get paid for. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, you know what, we've been on this thing, we'll be good. And Jane's like, I don't want to be anything.
That's not totally true. They were getting paid in trade.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Jane gets poetic about his, I don't remember what he calls it, his John Thompson?
Yeah.
And even Wash was like, yep, I knew you'd get poetic when it came to your dick.
Well, no, what I thought was interesting is they're like, okay, we may or may not get paid of things, and Jane's like, I don't really want to be part of it. There are going to be whores there. I'm in.
Well, he's been in his bunk for a while.
Yes, he's been in his bunk for a while.
With just him and Vera.
Yeah.
He has sharpened his pencil to a golf pencil now.
Okay. This is his rifle. This is his gun.
There are many like it, but that one is his.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you get that whole... The bad guy was throwaway bad guy to me.
He really was a throwaway bad guy.
Total throwaway. I'm just here to be the
And
bad
he's not
guy.
much
Did you
better
notice I was the
than
bad
Supernatural.
guy? His hovercraft is the best word.
Yeah,
that I
it's
can
a hovercraft.
describe it.
That's what it is.
The hovercraft was probably the weakest vehicle in the entire show.
Okay.
That felt like
Worse than the horses?
Star Wars made this, and they went, "We have this in the back. You want to use it?" Well, they didn't use it in Star Wars because it was terrible. Yeah, but our budget's getting a little.
No,
low.
they used it in
Episode
Star
1.
Wars.
Episode
He went
1.
from they only show him driving across the desert with it, but then he immediately gets out of it. It's a montage scene.
It just felt like just a throwaway Star
It
Wars
was.
hovercraft. That's all it felt like.
This is another one
And
of
they
those,
put a Gatling gun on the back, going,
Now it's
"Ah!"
impressive. Now it's impressive.
This is another one of those episodes where they really show that pessimistic view of the future, where the gender gap is just
There were guys.
horrific.
There were guys.
There were guys. I'm not talking about the horrors. I'm talking about the way that the bad guy treated his wife
And his mistress.
and his mistress. He was mean to
And his
both.
baby.
He was mean to both the wife and the mistress. He was cruel. I mean, I think Mal is complimenting his wife, and he's like, "Oh yes, my gun is beautiful."
I was talking about the woman, you useless piece of snot.
Nice,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's also the fact that his wife, since his wife can't have kids, she's pretty much without use.
To him.
To him.
Or to the bad guy.
Oh my god, I just realized what that whole scene was. It was like a weird montage, a weird throwback to Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
That would be homage, but yes.
Homage, thank you.
I haven't seen that one.
Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Two men
There's
go
a
in,
scene,
one comes out.
No. There's a whole scene toward the end where all of the bad guys on
Earth.
the Renegades goes after all the people inside their town. Okay, so they come up, and then the guy who's on the hovercraft is the main guy on Mad Max and Beyond Thunderdome, trying to get people out of the seed, and you know and all the guys on the horses is all his characters, and they're trying to huddle around it. It really feels like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, it's also another one of those where it's like, oh, we haven't hit you in the face for a while with the fact that it's a space western. So let's throw the evil cattle baron and poor little dancer at the saloon.
Yes, absolutely. This is hey, in case you haven't forgotten it, this is a space western. We're going to go ahead and work that in.
Everybody has something to do at that whorehouse too. The preacher gets a chance to talk religiosity with the whores.
We haven't been to church in a very long while.
I love how Ainara.
There you go.
I will try to remember that.
Okay.
Ainara sits there and goes, "We're going to a whorehouse." And he's going, "I thought you didn't like the word horse. No, in this
case,
case,
it's a
yeah,
horse.
these are horse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
these are
sense
horse.
that Nandy, the woman running the Heart of Gold, was a companion in the past.
No, there's
Yes.
no sense. She says it.
She
Yeah,
says it.
she says it.
She says it. Nandy was a companion in the past. She left the life
Companion
and is now-
training.
and is now running a whorehouse.
Right.
She's friends with Inara.
Mhm.
And then she does something that really pisses off Inara.
She sleeps with
Captain
the
Mal.
Yeah, she sleeps with the captain.
That's not my territory, but it's my territory.
She's like, and then not too long before she dies, she goes, Nora, you lied to me about her, saying that you guys didn't have a relationship. And the captain's like, what are you talking about? We didn't have a relationship. What are you talking about?
He's a
And they're
guy.
like, oh, look, they're about to attack. So, of course, they don't delay
Right.
that, and of course, they'll
It's
never
not
know
a throwaway
what that
line.
was.
It's a hint line.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's on, off, and on. I mean, sometimes you think he's the one who really cares more about Inara. Sometimes you can tell that she cares about him. It's just that whole line they haven't figured out to cross yet.
Mm-hmm. I think that when she's crying about that whole I screwed up the relationship and I wanted to have sex with him first and I didn't get to kind of sad thing that she had, it felt like it didn't build up to that.
Yeah.
That was all in the background. You kind of understand, okay, that's how she feels about him. But there wasn't enough hardcore hints that made you completely believe that when that scene finally happened. You're like, I know she felt something for him, but she never really hinted that she felt that much where she is just bawling her eyes out that she didn't have to sex with him.
She did kiss Mal when he was passed out after getting the kiss of death from Saffron.
Yeah.
And it's and she didn't call dibs.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Not her fault. She get
I mean,
called
seriously,
in.
even dragons call dibs.
Even dragons.
I will be back. All right. Ready to move on to the last episode?
Mm-hmm.
Objects in Space with
Well,
Boba Fett. I mean, Jubal
Boba
Early.
Fett. Total Boba Fett, isn't it?
Even
Lord.
the
Even
ship
the ship
looked
looks
like
like Slave
Boba
One.
Absolutely it did.
Okay.
So he sneaks on.
The Red Ninja.
Tiptoes.
Yep, the Red Ninja shows up.
All right.
And he is the most philosophical bounty hunter on any show or movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
He's also a puppy mangler.
He's a puppy mangler. They even say it.
And quite possibly gay. Not that there's a problem with homosexuality, but
He's like,
Where's the gay coming?
he is a master manipulator, and he makes sure that people realize that he's a master manipulator, especially when he gets in front of Karen?
Kaylee.
Kaylee, thank
Kaylee.
you. Man, I'm
Not
terrible
likely
with
to
names.
rate
Terrible with names. Kaylee.
We had them written down in the last episode. That's why he did so well. No offense. Yeah.
He had him like, yeah.
Yeah, written on my that's not missing. Okay. So he goes with the Kaylee and says, "You ever been raped?"
What? No.
And she goes, she knows that, so he's got her on this edge. And I like the writing in that particular part of the scene because he says the least amount possible. And get her
it's
to be
efficient.
completely fearful of
It's
him.
efficient. Mm-hmm.
It is very efficient and completely well written. The way they did that with the least amount of words possible, that you believed that she was frightened out of her mind.
Good.
It was a very well acted episode, too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't remember how that episode opens. Because all the episodes after a while blur together in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That one opens. They're all going to bed.
Yes.
And
That was the episode that that Kaylee confesses to everybody, hey, she shot everybody really fast.
yes, she reveals.
And there was that whole discussion that
She did it
you
with
find
her eyes
out that
closed.
River Tam listened in to that whole conversation.
That's the one that opens very philosophically, where
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of weird because you're seeing Serenity through River's eyes. Where at one point the preacher says, "I don't care if they like you or not. What is it like? You could be dead to me and I wouldn't care."
I don't give a good goram if you're innocent.
Yeah, I don't give a good goram if you're innocent.
She's like reading people's minds, and
Right.
the people are saying things that they've thought or
Yep.
said. And she has the image of washing Zoe together.
Watching Zoe together.
It, yeah. I couldn't remember which episode that was.
I think even Adam Baldwin, Jane. I think even Jane's like, I'd do it again if the money got right enough or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They both, and obviously River's completely struggling with this.
The one where she picks the gun up off the floor and it's not a gun.
Yeah, the twig.
Yeah, and the twig.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gun, and she suddenly zaps back into reality and goes, "Oh, it's a gun."
It's not. It's not what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Joss Whedon in the Serenity movie commentary has actually said basically that he's always very careful about the placement of her hair and he likes getting her feet into shots. I think the dude has a thing for River Tam feet.
Well,
or feet.
And that's something that people have said about much of his work.
Yeah.
Buffy has a lot of bare feet. Dollhouse specifically has a lot of bare feet.
Wheat's got a fetish.
He's also very specific about making sure her hair is placed even to the hair where he needs it to be, so it looks like a curtain draped over.
Okay, so we're done with the series. You haven't seen the movie yet, so you're down to the last 2 episodes.
The episodes missing are Trash and War Story. No, not War Stories. Trash and Message.
And one thing that I can never remember which episode it is, but the interplay between River and the preacher about the Bible, where she fixes it.
Does that sound familiar to you?
No.
Okay, then it's in probably, I'm going to guess that's probably while they're doing the job to get the Lassiter.
I think that's Trash.
Trash.
Okay.
It's probably during Trash.
Gotcha, Trash.
Which episode is U Day?
Were they in a bar during U Day? That's Train Job.
That was the very first episode.
I just couldn't remember.
The Train Job.
All right, let me ask you a general question about the whole series. What is your guys' insight into why Chinese is completely throughout most of this show?
Those are the 2 main spacefaring races that were able to get off the planet before it went all to poop.
Mm.
There are more Chinese speakers in this world than there are English speakers.
Mm.
There's an infograph somewhere on the web. I forget. We'll post it somewhere. It has a picture of like half of China. It says there are more people inside this circle than outside this circle.
Yeah. Interesting.
Worldwide.
That's a good point. That's an interesting point of the future worldview by putting that in perspective.
And a lot of the literature around Serenity calls the alliance full name the Sino-American Alliance, I believe is what it's called. So it's a Chinese-American based form of government, which is why you have Buddhism and Christianity, the two major faith things surviving into space.
But you do get a couple of references to Russian with
Niska.
There's another reference that shows up in Serenity. There's obviously some British that shows up with the colonist who rode with Badger and his group. There are those other accents that probably got picked up and probably either got re-strengthened or modified.
And minor colonies and stuff like that. Just like if you go to Africa, they have some French colonies.
Yeah.
I had a student who came here from Africa who knew 5 languages because he had to know English, he had to know French, and he had 3 tribal languages that he had to learn in his family.
Or South Africa, which has Dutch. Nowhere near Holland, but Dutch is huge.
It's also fun to cuss in foreign languages.
It's always fun to
Yes.
cuss in foreign
Think
languages.
back to high school when you took your foreign language requirement. That's what you wanted to learn. You didn't want to learn how to say where is the bathroom and how can I find the discotheque. You wanted to learn how to cuss people up.
There's a line in Mrs. Reynolds where the preacher's like, can you go get me a dictionary because he wants to look up is the captain married? And Simon's like, yeah, fucking A, man. In Chinese it translates to, yeah, that's a really goddamn good idea. But because you can't say that in English because the censors will go all over you. It's in Chinese. It's like, yeah, I think my head just exploded. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Whedon does that in a couple where he will use other languages and other cultures to get around censors. For in Buffy, a scene with Spike, and it's used as part of his character cut in the intro, where Spike is sitting there and just kind of like that, and the American audience is like, oh, he's giving a peace sign or whatever.
No, that's peace. That's British for
Yeah, that's bad. It's no bueno.
No bueno. Mm-hmm.
So they had to cut that out
Of the British side,
in the British, because they're like sending it over there, and they're like, what? No,
you can't put that in there. Eine Minuten bitte. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ich habe eine kleine Problem.
Just go Spanish.
Wow, that was interesting. All right, so that's about it.